I get it when you're staring at the wall of options for a new TV and wondering if you should splash out on a premium OLED or stick with a cheaper LED. You've probably spent an hour scrolling through specs, watching endless comparison videos, and still feel that knot in your stomach that says, what if I end up paying for something I won't actually use? That hesitation is real, especially when the price tag on a 65-inch screen pushes the budget into the big-ticket zone. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What I'm about to break down isn't a laundry list of numbers from a press release. It's what it feels like to live with an LG 65-inch Class OLED B4 series for a few weeks, how it fits into a typical family routine, and where the money you spend actually goes. Think of this as a coffee shop chat where I'm trying to help a friend decide if this TV is worth the investment for their home theater dreams or their weekday Netflix marathons. First off, the OLED technology. Because each pixel lights itself, you get that perfect black you only see on high-end projectors, and colors that seem to pop right off the screen. In practice, that means when you dim the lights for a movie night and hit a dark thriller, the shadows stay truly dark instead of turning into a muddy gray. I watched The Dark Knight on it, and the Batman silhouette against the night sky looked exactly how Christopher Nolan intended, no gray wash in the background. That's the biggest practical strength, true HDR performance that makes movies feel cinematic without needing a separate sound system to compensate for visual shortcomings. The A8 AI processor is another piece that actually matters once the TV is set up. It does a decent job of upscaling lower resolution content, so when you stream older sitcoms that were originally broadcast in 720p, the picture still looks crisp on the 4K panel. It also adjusts brightness and color tone based on the room's lighting, which is a subtle but welcome convenience. You don't have to spend 5 minutes fiddling with picture modes every time you switch from daylight to evening. The TV learns and adapts, which is useful if you have kids running in and out of the living room all day. Now, the Magic Remote. LG's Magic Remote lets you point and click, which is great for navigating WebOS 24 if you're a casual user who doesn't want to memorize a maze of menus. I found it especially handy when I was scrolling through the built-in LG channels while cooking. A quick flick and the channel changed without having to wrestle with a tiny joystick. It also doubles as a voice assistant for Alexa, so you can say, "Alexa, play the next episode of Stranger Things," and the TV obeys. That integration feels natural, but it's not a game-changing feature for someone who already has an Echo or Google Nest on the wall. It's more of a convenience add-on than a necessity. Gaming is another angle many buyers look at. The B4 series supports a decent 120Hz refresh rate and low input lag, which makes it a respectable option for console gamers who own a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. In my testing, the input lag hovered around 20 milliseconds, which is low enough to not be noticeable for most single-player experiences. If you're competitive in fast-paced shooters, you might still prefer a dedicated gaming monitor with even lower lag, but for couch coupe or narrative-driven games, the TV feels smooth and immersive. The added Dolby Atmos support also means that, when you pair it with a soundbar, you get that overhead sound effect that makes explosions feel like they're happening around you. What about the downsides? The first thing that catches people off guard is the risk of burn-in with OLED. LG has mitigated this with pixel shifting and a logo luminance limiter, but if you have a channel that displays a static logo for many hours each day, there's a small chance you'll start seeing faint ghost images after a few years. For most households that watch varied content, it's not a deal-breaker, but it's worth noting if you plan to use the TV as a dedicated news ticker or a digital signage board. Secondly, the price. At the upper mid-range, this model sits comfortably above many 4K LED alternatives that offer decent HDR. The value you're paying for really comes down to how much you care about that perfect black level and the AI-driven upscaling. If you're a cinephile who watches a lot of HDR movies on Netflix, Disney+, or Ultra HD Blu-rays, the visual leap is tangible. If you're mainly watching 1080p YouTube videos and occasional sports, you might not notice the difference enough to justify the extra cost. Another practical consideration is the wall mounting experience. The TV is relatively thin, which is great for a sleek look, but the weight is still significant. I needed a sturdy, VESA-compatible mount and a helper to lift it into place. If you're renting and can't drill holes, the lack of a simple stand-only setup could be a